My name is Fatimah Kennedy. I have been a part of the Empire um, for what now, 3 years, 2 years, Anna? I went to the first um,
In
event. I think it
20,
was it 2017,
no, it was 2018. In early
2018.
2018. It was April 2018. It just feels longer. It's almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Actually, it might be, actually, it's already 3 years because it was in March. So it's
When you
3.
first started and launched.
Mhm.
Yes, I
No,
went
when
to
we
be
first
first.
started launch, it's already like almost, it's like 3 years and a half. But
Okay.
when from the event to today, it's 3 years.
Okay. Okay. So that I went to that first event and just felt a connection to other moms who I felt like the stories were very similar. And also just wanting to be a part of a community. I just moved to Florida and was looking for, just had my third baby and kind of in that same place of what do I do next, and just kind of not wanting to build that connection. And so went to that first event and met Anna there, met a few other moms there, and just loved what Anna had created for the Empire and has been a part since. Um, I recently moved back to Atlanta, Georgia, a year and a half ago. This is where I was raised um, and wanted to move back just for just a better lifestyle for my kids. And this just felt like home. I was just ready to come back home, be closer to family and friends that I did have here. But always wanted to. The one thing that I do miss about Florida is Empire and the friendships there. And so I love that we're able to still be able to connect socially and through Instagram and stay connected as much as possible. Um, as far as my background, I am African American. My parents, both of my parents are as well. My husband is Haitian, of Haitian descent, and that's me in a nutshell. Um, Raised in Atlanta most of my life. My family is from Philadelphia, and I have three beautiful children. My daughter Farah is 8 years old. Son Julian is 4, and my youngest son Jacques is 2 years old. So just a working mother, want to take care of my family. The goal right now is to get them all to college, safe, healthy, happy, and healthy, and just live a normal, peaceful life, enjoying our family and friends and taking care of our kids. That's about it. Um, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. I'm Anna. I am the co-founder of Empire, and I launched Empire, what was then Mama Boss, now Empire, in 2017. And I created this platform because I didn't see any outlet or platform at that moment that allowed mothers to still connect with one another. And when I became a mom, I felt very lonely during that time. And I thought there has to be something where women can still connect with one another and have honest conversations. And so that's how the idea of Empire started. And now it's 3 years and a half that we've been here. And when I first launched, the whole idea was to be inclusive to every mom and women in general. I'm not a fan of labels or groups or things like that. I feel like it limits us in the human connection way. And so that was my take on this whole thing. I wanted it to be open to everyone. Now with this whole thing coming about, I realized how maybe we were doing a disservice by not also talking about issues that revolve around culture, race, and diversity. So my background is I was born in Honduras, which is in Central America. My parents left, my whole family is from a neighboring country called Nicaragua, which is also in Central America. And they left basically because there was war going on at the time. There was a president who wanted to take over, and there was rebellion, and it just didn't become safe anymore. So my parents and then later my grandmother left. I will dwell on that story a little bit later because it's a lot of stuff there. But so I was born in Honduras. I came here to the US when I was 9, after my parents separated. And I've been here ever since. I was pretty much raised in Miami. I feel like this is what I know. I don't have much memories of the country that I was born in. So this feels like home to me, and Miami has been it has its pros and cons, but it's the beauty of it is that there's diversity within the South Florida region. And for me, I felt like in a way I was home because there was so many Latin Americans here. But at the same time, there's also issues with that as well, because there's a whole thing within the Latin community as well. So, but anyways, that is my background. I have a daughter who's 2 years old, and I'm sorry, not 2, 3 years old, almost going on 4. Time is moving too fast. I can't even keep up. And she's been an amazing dream come true. And now I'm trying to lay the foundation on her to be a good human. And that's a little bit about me.
Okay, so as I was saying, I'm Raquel. I guess my background would be born and raised in Venezuela. I actually kind of came here to the US, to Miami, because of the same reasons. My mom and dad separated and forever, but he took forever to sign the divorce papers. So the minute that he did, my mom just took the chance to be able to move on to something different. But it was also because at that time, Chavez, the president, was that started making Venezuela a communist country, was going to go into election. So it just started to feel that it was going to end up in bad shape. So I guess she just wanted to get away and provide a different and better environment for us. I have three children, a 19, a 12, almost 13 in a few days, and a 6-year-old. My background is in quantum physics. I've been teaching and mentoring for a while, and even though I had businesses with my husband in construction that had nothing to do with it, I was still somehow involved in coaching and mentoring in some way. So as a mom, that it's in a place that I've really never had helped besides my husband, and we missed out on a lot of having time alone because of that. Either he's helping me because I need to do something with kids, or I'm helping him, but there's never really a time where we get help for the both of us to do something. I was always drawn to finding that, understanding the struggle of that and being connected to mothers. And I kept on being, even through my mentorships, being connected to mothers, because as a mom and as a woman and as a business owner, I always knew how to understand that part of it all. But for me, felt like I'm a human connection kind of person. I need connection. I need physical. So the virtual thing, it's wonderful, but for me, I need more than that. So I always wanted to have that space where women connected and all that. So then from on my end, it tried to happen, but it didn't. At one point, I thought I had convinced my husband to move out away from Miami. So my plans were that, and then it didn't happen. So, but at the end of the day, the universe didn't make it that way for some reason. Maybe it didn't happen for Anna and for those reasons either, because now I actually met the person that has the same vision that I do, but not just the vision, has the same passion behind it, because I didn't also want somebody that just wanted to have the space. I wanted that person to like actually care for it as much as I did. So that's how Anna and I are here now. Doing this together. Kobe has to go away because we want to open the space. Let's make it a bubble so we all feel safe.
Yes, I agree. So thank you guys for introducing yourselves. So I guess now we can move on to maybe like talking about our childhood experiences, how that shaped us in different ways, and our maybe point of view of the world. And moving on up to, I guess, till today. And also, how does that translate on raising your children based on your experiences as a child, and then with current issues as well. So I guess Fatimah, lead the way.
As I stated, I am African American, but grew up majority of my life in Atlanta. So I think having that experience and living in the South, it was pretty young when I realized, Black, white, and those differences as regards to race. I really didn't deal with anything directly when I was young, but I think living here with the history, Dr. Martin Luther King lived here, born, raised here, and just that history that is tied to him in this city, we're always aware, even though, as far as education-wise in the school systems, very limited education. But as far as what my mother taught me, the field trips that we took, a lot of even like PBS documentaries and things that I watched, I understood that there was a difference between Black and white here. And I think for many years, for me and my perspective, it was literally just Black and white. Not really thinking much about other cultures and people from other countries. That really didn't happen until I got into high school and met people from different countries. One of my best friends is from East Africa, Eritrea. And that's when I think my worldview started to open up a little bit more, and understanding that everything is not Black and white. And it's not just, people have different perspectives. Even coming here as an immigrant, in your experience, being of color, and coming into this country and seeing, we would have conversations growing up, just my perspective and theirs, and there's a difference. I mean, there was a difference even between African Americans and Africans, and how we looked at each other. The overwhelming just point was always that everyone just fought over wanting to have a piece, wanting to feel like you had a place, but then it was also just wanting, your piece of this pie of America. And it feels often that that's what a lot of this fight is over. People wanting to be able to take care of themselves financially and take care of their families. And that is it. That's what it feels like we're always fighting over. It's like that tug and pull. And so through high school, meeting different people from different countries around the world, I also developed friendships with a very diverse group of people. So for me, being a Black woman, I've also realized that everyone doesn't think the same. Once again, it's not just black and white. And I've been so blessed to have people from, one of my good friends is Japanese, West Africa. My husband is from Haiti. So I've been afforded and been so blessed to have different perspectives that have formed my opinions of things that are happening in the world. And I can honestly say a lot of times that does not happen. And it would be a beautiful world if more people had that. I can say I was not intentional about finding friends that were from different places. It just always led to that for me. And I was okay with being open. And when you think about things that are happening now, if people were a little open to hear someone else's perspective versus just staying in your perspective and living in that moment and that truth, how much better could we be? You know, because we all have a story, we all have a perspective. And if we just take the time to stop and listen, you would learn so much more about people. My experiences in college, I went to a college in Southern Georgia, and that was the reality for me. It was like, once again, I was transported from Atlanta in a school that was very diverse, and then going into a place where you could feel the racism. It was apparent. You see the Confederate flags hanging from doors and houses. It's not even a big deal. And never felt comfortable or safe there. And my college experience was not, it wasn't a great experience overall. I had great friendships and moments in college, but once again, it just brought to light that the racism, it does exist. It's not going anywhere. It's here. And for me, it was, I want to be around people that think otherwise. And so I will say,
Hi, Mommy.
hi, sweetie. I will say,
What you doing?
I'm on the phone. I will say that, yeah, that's mom life, right?
Yes.
You know, just to kind of fast forward to now, I think a lot of what's happening and the things that have happened over the last few weeks, for me personally, none of it is, sad to say, very shocking. This happens all the time, and it feels as though I literally woke up watching that George Floyd video, and I feel as though a lot of other people did too. And I think that's just the moment that we're in. And enough is enough. And we'll have to hope and pray that for our kids, it will be different for them, and that real change is implemented within this country. But it's been a whirlwind of emotions. I think it's been a lot of literally just uncovering layers and layers of frustration, anger, hurts, and that's just coming to the surface. It's coming to the surface for me individually, and I think that is what you're seeing now, with so many people upset and angry. For a lot of it, as far as the protests, right there with you, I absolutely understand it and it's needed. The rioting part, you know, initially it was, okay, I don't understand it. I wish they didn't happen. That's diluting the message. But then there comes a point where you're so, like, what else can be done? How many protests can happen and nothing happens? There's been more change over the last few weeks because now things are becoming very, it's real, and it's causing a push. And now it's just a hope that this can extend for more than 2 weeks, more than 2 months. It'll go past another 2 years, and we'll have real change for our children. You know, that to me is I want change for them. They shouldn't have to live through this. They shouldn't. They should not. Starting to get emotional. It's just, you deal with knowing how to, when you go outside, we go out for runs in our neighborhood, My husband carries his ID, not because if God forbid he were to like get hit by a car and you'd be able to identify where he goes. It's so he can show that he lives in this neighborhood and that he belongs and he's not a threat. You know, that's normal. And before George Floyd, it was just, that's what you do. Knowing that I have to have the conversations with my sons on how to engage with the police if they were to stop you. And even with that, there's only so much you can do, and it's try to be peaceful, try to not be a threat, put your hands up. I don't know. And even that doesn't seem to be happening and working anymore. It's knowing that when I walk into a store, you know, I try not to have my phone in my purse. So I am not looked upon as someone that could be potentially stealing. Like, I think about all of these things all the time. And it's just normal. And the last few weeks, it made me realize this isn't normal. And it's not fair. And I don't want that from kids. There's so many other things. That's just little stuff. From everything from daily to work and how I have to behave and come across with colleagues that are not Black, to how I engage with customers who are, and how I have to stand and speak in a certain way. I don't want that for kids because this isn't healthy. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. There's no need to apologize.
All of this stuff over the last few weeks has brought up the fact that this isn't normal. This is not healthy. This is not healthy mentally for people of color. And that the way that man died on that video a few weeks ago, like, enough. And yes, that was one cop, but it's happening all the time. And no, all cops are not bad. I have police officers in my family, and they stand with George Floyd in the protests that are happening, because enough is enough. You know, like, I would love to say that what happened to him was not based on the color of his skin, but let's be real, it was. And the idea that we can't talk about this, or that we have to not make it about race, no, this is why people are tired. You can't continue to tell people that it doesn't exist anymore, get over it, move on. Like, that's not fair, because it's not, and we're dealing with it every single day. And I am fortunate. There are certain things that I don't deal with that I know my other Black brothers and sisters do. And so my experience is different from others, but it's happening. It's real, and it's exhausting. And so, no, it's sad that, you know, cities were burned down, and buildings and people's businesses were impacted. But for so long, for hundreds of years, the same can be said for Black people. And once again, this is just literally generations and generations of people just, enough is enough. I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who teaches kids in Sunday school, and she was asking their opinion. And most of these kids are teenagers, asking their opinion on how they felt about George Floyd and how are they feeling. And she said they were all like, we're numb to it. And these are teenagers. Like, the idea that what happened to George Floyd and being on video was normal to them, because for more than 10 years of their life, they've seen this over and over and over and over on video, and nothing is going to happen. These are the kids that are out here protesting and that are leading this charge. They're literally sick and tired of it. And so even that idea that people are dealing with seeing it on TV for over a decade plus, like, that's not normal. And so it's until we are able to figure out how we can change and break down the systems that this country was built upon, and find a place where people can be treated equally, and also have the conversations. We haven't been having the conversations, and you're going hundreds of years without having this conversation, just kind of pacifying it, giving us a Martin Luther King Day, and, you know, having a conversation about Rosa Parks. But outside of that, what more do most people know about Black history and the contributions that have been made to this country? We don't, because they don't want that history told. You know, why don't our kids know more? Why don't I know more? Why don't my parents know more? You know, this is where these are the things that hopefully we're able to somewhat change, so that our kids, their children, and the generations after will have a different experience in this country. That's all. That's all. We're all human. We all breathe the same. It's literally just the color of our skin is different and our cultures are different. And that's a beautiful thing. That's to be celebrated. It should not be quieted or excused. And often being a Black American, you feel as though a lot of our experiences are just kind of brushed off and excused, and just saying, get over it, move on. You are able to, you have rights now, you've had a Black president, and that's not enough. That's not enough.
Do you see the difference between the time you lived in Miami and in Atlanta, as far as this being happening more over there than when you were here?
Miami is completely different, and I think it's due to the diversity there, and the Latin American presence there. It's like it's its own world. I mean, if you were to go a couple miles or a couple hours up to Orlando looks and feels a lot different than Miami. So I can't speak much to the experience in Miami versus Atlanta. My husband grew up in Miami. But I think even to his point, it's all the same. It happened. I think it's more of, you had more of a Caribbean culture and things that were happening there. And he even told me, he said, oh, even the contributions that Black Americans made to the city, you don't hear or see about it in Miami, you know? So I can't speak to that personally, but I know the difference in feeling like when I was in Miami, it felt like I was in literally a different country versus being in Atlanta. It does not feel, you have so many people from different countries, but I didn't feel that sense of like Black and white as you do here. And not to say that there are so many people here in Atlanta from all over the world, but it's just a lot of generalizations that are happening, and things have changed over the last 20 years, but you still, it's very just Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, that's it. And as far as the contributions that, you know, most or different countries or people from different countries are having in the city, you don't see it and feel it the same way as you do in Miami.
I mean, I feel like even with that, it's everyone has had like a different perspective of Miami, and depending on how and where you have come from, whether you were born in Miami, but it does feel like its own country, basically its own. Yeah. I remember my, growing up here, because I am of Latin descent. It felt almost like I was home. It didn't really feel very different in a way, even though I did have experiences of bullying and things like that because of where I was coming from other Latin country, like I guess people of other Latin countries. So, but to the point is that everyone feels very differently about Miami, and for me, I realized how the Latin community is very sheltered because they don't really get to experience too much of the difference of what America as a whole is experiencing in terms of culture and race. And so I remember my first experience of feeling like an alien, like very different. We always did summer trips with my family, and the first time that one of our summer trips was to Tennessee. And I will never forget this experience because it was my first experience as being seen as a different person. And I went to a grocery store, and most of the people were white Americans. And even though I'm the light-skinned kind of Latin American, it was still, for them, we looked different, you know, and some of my family members are darker complexion than I am. So we have different skin tones within our family. And they just looked at us like we had come from basically Mars, you know, like people would just look at us with like these weird faces. And I was young, I was a teenager. And I remember thinking how strange of a feeling it felt for me, because I hadn't really felt racism until this moment in time. And they didn't say anything, but you can see it in their faces that they felt very uncomfortable that we were there. And, yeah, I just kept going, but I felt it, and I always remembered it, and it always stayed in my mind. It always left a very lasting impression of knowing that I guess this is why the Latin community stays within the South Florida region, because they feel like sheltered, and they feel like if they go elsewhere, they will feel that, you know. And it was just, you know, an out-of-body experience. And I realized that that's probably what people who have darker skin colors feel like every day. You know, I felt it in that moment in time. And
Absolutely.
And it was hard. I felt weird. I felt like, you know, like just, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like uncomfortable, and it made me a little sad to see that, because to that point I hadn't experienced it. And you know, it's yeah, like what you're saying, you don't get to experience it unless you leave Miami, or you know, people of other cultures leave Miami, and they get to see what the nation is going through, this whole turmoil of racism. And although we know it exists, because even within here it exists, within the South Florida region it exists, it's not as strong. It doesn't feel as strong as it would to feel elsewhere, at least from my experience as a Latin American. Obviously, probably other people of color have experienced it here either way, like you were saying, like your husband. So it's just, it's like you were saying, everyone goes through different things within their own experiences coming here as an immigrant. You know, I was bullied for not knowing the language well. I was bullied because I wasn't from Cuba, where most of the people in Miami are Cuban. So they would assume that I was from Cuba, and the minute that they would see I wasn't, I was made fun of. And that took a toll on me for a while when I was a young kid, because I came here when I was 9. And it felt weird to me to have that coming from another person that speaks my tongue, Spanish, you know, and not understanding why that was happening. And I became like ashamed of where I came from, because I was bullied so much from it. And to the point where sometimes I would just say I was from Cuba because I didn't want to deal with it, you know? Not many people know this until now, but, you know, people, I don't know why this happens even within our own cultures. You know, we all have struggled. People who have come from Cuba, people who have come from Haiti, people who have come from Venezuela. I mean, we all have come because we've been escaping one thing or another, and we want a better life. And you know, I came here luckily for a different reason. I came here because my parents separated. My mom had her whole family here, so we came here. But you still want to be safe wherever you are. And experiencing that took me to a very dark place in my life for a while. And then seeing other people of other cultures as well, like going through the same thing, it hurt. I had not experienced that since I came here in the US. I hadn't experienced it when I was, you know, in my country, but then I was small, so I don't know if maybe there was things like that. But it became very apparent when I came to the US that there was very big differences between the color of your skin and where you came from. And why I care so much about all of this today. And I mean, I've always cared about it. But everyone has their journey that we've gone through. Like, some of them are stronger than others. I can't say that when I go outside, I have to carry an ID with me to let people know in my neighborhood that I live here. I've never experienced that. I can't imagine what that's like. When I go to a store, I've only had very small experiences of that, and that's if I'm going to maybe a more upscale store, or maybe a store somewhere else other than South Florida. But to have to live through that every day, it's something that I can't fathom. I can't. And I can understand why you're tired, why everyone is tired of that experience, because it takes away from your life. It takes away from your freedom, your happiness, your sense of peace. And I was thinking about this, that having to have a conversation with your child who's, I don't know, when would you have a conversation about this with your child? You take their innocence away, because now they have this imprinted in their mind, having to worry about these things wherever they go. And how unfair that is.
Yeah, having the sense of like you don't belong. It's time to drop the labels. It's just so beyond. It's time to drop the labels, because just like you're expressing that it's not just people of color, it's everywhere. It's the Hispanic community among ourselves judging. I've never had to present an ID because I'm a person of color, but I do remember my mom always telling me, you have to have an ID with you to make sure that if somebody stops you, you show that you're legal in this country. And then that was her fear. You always have to have something saying that you're legal. So it's not that, it's a different feeling, but we all go through something in some way that we can relate to each other. The same way with going to a store, and she would always fear of going into her purse. So sometimes I still catch myself saying, like, if the kids ask for something, I'm like, no, we're in the store. I'll look at it. Or like, if they want to put something in my purse, it's like, don't put it in my purse now, we'll put it later. It's like, we gotta let go of that fear too. It's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Why do I have to walk around the store as if I'm putting my cell phone in the purse, I'm already being looked at? And it's not even about being in a foreign country, because even in Venezuela, we're all from the same culture. I mean, you do have people that immigrated there, but where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of people of color. I knew very little because of the community. But my grandmother wasn't too much of a fan of people of color. And one of my uncles, he married a person, of color. And I remember when I was little that we would have to go visit them and at their home. Like they would come to see my grandmother very seldom. And I always felt like I always knew she didn't like her, but I just thought that she just didn't like her and didn't really last for a long time because I think that was like one of the main issues. But then I came to learn that it was because of that. And thankfully, my mom and, thankfully actually nobody besides my grandmother had that issue, because if not, I would have probably grown up with an idea of something that it's not real, because what makes the person of color different than me? We're both humans. We both have feelings. We're all, we're the same. So it's not just happening because we're in a foreign country. It's still happening within our country, that there's just this label that it keeps on being put on people. And even within the Hispanic community, if you're from this country, you're already labeled as, you must be this type of person. If you're from here, oh yeah, you must be, it's just like you meet one person and you have an experience with that person, and that person labels everyone else. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that, not just about the color, about the country, about the situation. Everyone should be looked at for what we are. We're humans. And that's that's the reason why we should connect, because as humans, we connect. And you know what? You have the right not to like someone, but it shouldn't be because you automatically put the label on them and not even get to know them. So that fear of just not like feeling like you belong, it's horrible, especially if you have to tell your children from an early age to feel like they don't belong, because in some way you want to protect them. But how is that fair? Right? It can feel fair. I mean, I'm sure, Fatima, you can elaborate on this, but I just feel like if you feel that it's unfair for you, but somehow that feels like you're teaching them to protect themselves in some way, at the same time, it's kind of like you have to implant a little bit of that fear from little to protect them, but it's like, it's sad.
It's sad. I am so proud to be Black. I love my culture. I love my people. We teach our children, love your skin that you're in, love our culture, love our people. And to your point, when we've started to have these conversations with my daughter, and we've started a couple years ago, and just with like a lot of the books and literature that she has, but I think with things happening now and she sees things that are coming on TV, you have to have that real conversation, and it's not pretty. And and there's, when she asked the reason, well, why do they treat Black people this way? Like, there's no right answer. And the answer is, it's not fair. There's really, when you dig deep and to figure out, well, why don't they treat people of color fairly? There is no reason or logic behind it. It's just that they're racist, or there's racism that is steeped within this culture, in this country, and that's not fair. And unfortunately, it does lead to them to have to feel a sense of fear. I want to teach my boys to be strong, to be proud, to speak up for who you are. But in part of that lesson, when they have to engage with officers, but still at some point, be respectful. And you kind of have to essentially calm down who they are. Like, that's not fair. And you can't not have a little fear, unfortunately. And that is the struggle. I don't want them to fear. They shouldn't have to. But I also want my kids to come home. I don't want my kids to be a Tamir Brown, 12-year-old boy killed by police with a play gun. Like, seriously? You know, I don't want that to be the case. So it's what do you do? You know, how do I have those conversations? It's being honest and real, and it's showcasing the ugly side of this country. And I try to not harbor that anger and resentment into every decision that I make daily as an American, but it's very hard when you continue to think about it, when these stories are going on, to not live in a sense of anger. This latest case that just happened, sitting here watching it. And for me, I have to watch it because I get so sick of people's opinions and saying, okay, well, he did something wrong, or he shouldn't have resisted arrest, and he was scared. It's okay for him to have been scared. This man was scared, just as probably those officers were heightened and potentially scared. So you have 3 grown adults scared in a moment, and one shot and killed another, and he lost his life on his daughter's birthday, mind you. This is the man in Atlanta that died on Friday, when he literally just fell asleep at the wheel of a Wendy's. And in front of all of that, there were cars and people that saw this exchange again. So now think about the trauma that these people now have of witnessing them. The anger, it does not end. It's just, how do you not be angry? How do you not relay that to your children? It is hard. And for me not to relay it, I would then have to withhold information from them and not tell the truth. And that is not fair either. So there is no easy way. It's the time that we're living in, and this is what the kids have to be witness to, but in hopes that the change will come and that they will grow up to be leaders within their communities or whatever they plan to do in their life, that they can be a part of a change where this will not continue. Because this we can't continue on like this as a country. We cannot. We
as
absolutely
a country
cannot.
or in the world.
That too, yes, absolutely.
It's time to change the history, and especially I think in the US, it's just more of like, unless you were born in the US and you are pure American, everyone else, it's being looked at someone that just comes in to freeload of their country, or like they don't have the right. But in reality, the country's made by everyone that has immigrated, because
Yes.
if you go back to history and you look at what the country was and what it became from everyone that came here to build a dream and made it this their home and wanted to build a dream in a foreign country, everyone that did that, it's actually given to the country what they're not given to their own homeland because they can't.
Yep.
So, and you know, and it's just going back to my thought, if it wasn't because, and nobody agreed with my grandmother, and I would love to know, like, I'm sure that what would have been my mindset against people of color or maybe other races, because we still, just because there was Venezuela doesn't mean that we still didn't have people that immigrated, and you still were mixed, you know. Actually, Venezuela was a place that a lot of people immigrated. Brazil, because of the bad things going on in their country. So it still comes down to what is the mindset that you're growing up with? What are you being fed? If right now I talk to my kids in the way that I feel about everyone and how everyone should be looked at, that's how they're going to see it. But if you still have these families that have that strong belief that no, nobody has the right to be here, and this, you know, if you see these people, they're just basically coming in and taking away from our country, or You know what I mean? Like feeling like this is my country, but here you are getting all the benefits too. But unless I'm coming to your country to make it a bad place, understand that I'm also here doing as much as I can to make it better as well. So we're all contributing as well. Just because I'm not born in, and I wasn't born here, doesn't mean that I'm still not trying to, you know, put it in what I can to make it grow like just like a person that was born here.
Absolutely. And once again, this country was taken away from Native Americans. This was their land. And then this country was built upon taking from them, bringing people over against their will, and building this country. And the founders were not from this country. They were immigrants as well. So this is no one's only people's land. That's Native Americans. This is their land, if you want to be that specific. So the idea that people can't, okay, go back to where you're from, or you can't take it or be a part of and benefit, that's ludicrous in this country. It's not, no. And for African Americans, we were brought here against our will. Our ancestors were. So, and our ancestors helped build this country. And then everyone else that then came upon and helped to build within this country. So it just feels like we're all fighting for a piece of what we call ours. And if people would stop, listen, understand, and get to know, that I feel like is the first steps to somewhat break down the racism that's here. But we all are the same. We want to take care of our families, raise happy, healthy kids, and live the best life that we can. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, exactly. I feel like that's what should matter, you know, our kids' future, and also finding a way to understand each other. You know, we all, like you said, have struggled. Mind you, the people that first came to this land were leaving their country because they were being persecuted for their religion. So that concept to me has always been very baffling, why they would forget why they left and then not remember that those who are coming here now are doing the same in different ways. Some people have come because they were persecuted for their religion. Some people have come because they were being killed by drug lords, all kinds of things. Some people have left because there's a communist country. We all have left to come here for security and safety and peace and providing for our family a better future. And I'm not excusing those who come and become criminals. I mean, I'm not excusing that, but those are small numbers compared to the larger number, and we tend to focus on those things and generalize that is who we are as a whole. The same with Black people. You know, I hear a lot of times, yeah, but they're all doing crimes, they're all doing this, and they have the highest crime rate. You're generalizing, and you're generalizing the fact that that's what you see and that's what you're being fed from media, and that's what you know. But are you going out there into your communities and getting to know these people and knowing that not all of them are like that? It's like not everyone is anything. You don't know until you know them personally, you know? And so that generalization that we have created in this country, generalizing and labeling people a certain way because you saw someone that did it is dangerous and has caused all of this. And it just needs to stop. We need to have these open conversations and realize that yes, there are criminals in every race, in every culture. There are bad people in every culture. But we need to focus on the good people. We need to focus on fostering that energy and fostering that community and helping them rise, so that when we look at people, we look at the people who are doing great things. We don't hear about a Black astronaut who went to space. We don't hear about a doctor who solved, or created some type of vaccine and he was a Black person or a Hispanic person or an Indian person, or we don't hear about those things. So getting to hear more and implementing a better education program where diversity is a thing will make a big difference on how we frame our children's minds in believing and seeing things that we've only seen it from one lens. And that's the problem. That's the issue that we're having in this country. And like you said, Raquel, probably all around the world, we've seen it from, and I also hate to say this, but we've seen it from a white lens, and I'm not saying there's great white Americans out there too, but we need to have diversity. Diversity is probably one of the most important things that we need to inject into our minds, our lives, our education system, everything. Because once you learn from other people, you realize that, like what you said, we're all the same. We're all the same ultimately. We're fighting and doing things for the safety of our families. And I feel like that's what it comes down to, to solve this issue. And it's been great to see a lot of changes with what happened with George, but there's so much more to do there. And every I feel like in every decade where there comes a big change, like when Martin Luther King was hit, the whole movement that he created, there was a lot of change that happened there, but it's still not enough. And when will it just end? When will it just be that we all are coexisting as one, as one humans? I don't know.
The world needs compassion. The world needs to learn compassion, because we're all the same. We're just judged differently. But we're all the same. We just happen to be judged differently, and some are judged more than others. But it all comes down to compassion. Why is it that it's so hard to feel that compassion towards everyone else around you? It all comes down to being being from that place. It's like, it's beyond this. Like I was telling you, I don't think anyone wakes up, grows up thinking, I want to live in the streets and have no family and no food, or I want to have to kill for money. And sometimes if you really pay attention to the stories, maybe they're doing something bad, but life has gotten them there, But it's like they said, I come out and I have nowhere to go. I'm still back in the street. So there's this kid that it breaks my heart, because he tells us, eventually I'm going to probably end up back in drugs, because it's the only thing that I have that can soothe me from being out here with no one or anything. So it also comes down to there's always a backstory, and we just see what's in the surface, and then we make assumptions. We never take the time to hear out the person. It doesn't matter what they're doing, what drove them there. What is their reality that we don't know about? We gotta learn compassion, spread the compassion as much as we can.
Documentary on Netflix called The 13th, where it's talking about the prison system and how essentially, it's a great documentary. I I've watched it a couple of times. It's something that I think everyone should watch to have an understanding. And to your point, Raquel, this young man now is at a point where, because he has his record, he cannot just go back into life as is and just get a home, get a job, and be able to start his life. He has to then fight against what this record that he has. And there's so many millions of people that the same thing, inmates that this is what they have to fight against. And to your point, we cannot judge based off of their record and not understanding how they got there. And this is beyond just police reform. This is going back to, this is, as we've been hearing over and over for the last few, especially the last few weeks, this is systemic, and this is on so many levels that are keeping people at a point where they are not able to thrive within this country. And like you said, he even said it, I will probably end back on drugs and then back in jail, honestly, because he has nothing else. And there are millions of people in that same circumstance. And we have to figure out a way to change the system within this country so people have a chance. And if people make a mistake, which we have all had made mistakes, we are one, all of us, we could have been that guy. Like, we're not exempt. But if we're able to figure out how to create a system so people are able to get back on their feet and are able to, once again, just be able to create a life so that they can live. That's it. This all comes down to us being able to live peacefully, take care of ourselves, take care of our families. And that's what we're all alike. And that's what we're all wanting. And we're all fighting for that one ideology. Like that, it's that, to me, it's that basic. If we are able to sit down and really get to talk to one another, understand where people are coming from, and as you said, show compassion, because that's what it all comes down to.
Country of the free, let it free, let it feel like it is.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about was that I remember, Fatima, you had said that there was a lot of kids that were that you had, I don't know if you had conversations or you had heard people say it, that they grow up seeing that their way of being accepted by society is having material stuff, and how that's what they strive for. People, I guess, kids who grow up in areas where there's not a lot of opportunities for growth, and that struck to me because it changed my perspective in a way that I hadn't thought of before. I mean, I had, but not to the extent from your point of view or the point of view of others who have been having this conversation. And I don't know if you want to touch up on that. Like, I remember we had a conversation before this, and I don't know, that impacted me, thinking it from that perspective.
Yeah, so my career is in retail, and I've been store manager for years, different companies, and even just being a Black person. So I think to that point, once again, my family, I have been lucky to have a family that have, my grandparents didn't come from money, worked hard, entrepreneurs, able to build a life for their family, take care of their children, and buy a home, and be able to pass that down to their kids. But I've often, over the last 20 plus years, that was my perspective growing up with my family. But I have, in meeting different people, engaging and having conversations, either through coworkers I've had to other people I've met over the years, and understanding that there's also a group of, I hate the generalization of this, but there are people, lower income, if you don't have any to dream or want more, you have to often see people around you that inspire you to want more. But if you have a system where you are growing up in low income housing, you're living in a city where you don't have a lot of access to grocery stores, just the basic things that we take for granted, or that a lot of, I would say, middle class people can take for granted. If you don't have those basics, you can then aspire to just wanting, those nice pair of sneakers, that nice car. You're not thinking anymore of, investing in buying a home, planning for your future. It is just that easy access to the quick and that material that make you feel good. I think all of us can speak to the point of, we love to have a nice dress or a nice pair of earrings, or, a nice handbag or shoes, and that makes us feel good, right? I think you have other people where that is all they're thinking. If they don't have, if their schools, if their the cities and towns that they live in, if all they're seeing is disparity, people, you're infected with drugs that are running rampant within these communities. If that's all they're seeing, how can they aspire for wanting something bigger, or for that dream of having that home or that lifestyle? Like, the easiest, quickest access is to having a nice outfit, some shoes, so a nice car. And to that point I was making with you before, Anna, that within the Black community, in the lower income community, and that is a reality. And so often you can hear people's excuses of, once again, why are they rioting? Like, why are you burning down your communities? There's no attachment to it. It's not that there's not a pride there, but it hasn't meant anything. They haven't benefited from anything. They haven't seen or been treated or see that, the place that they live in is worthy. Then there's no attachment. It's all good. It doesn't mean anything. So to that point, if you look at from that perspective of understanding why some of the looting is happening, they looted the place that I work in. They looted the mall that I work in. And it's shocking. It's sad to see, but am I surprised? No. Am I even upset with them? Not really. I mean, because once again, you're living in a country that is not hearing you, is not valuing you. You don't see that. Your everyday occurrence is, I don't know, what you see on TV, on the news, which is depicting our people as criminals and thieves anyway. Like, how can anyone aspire to want even more if that's all that you see and you're inundated with? So it takes, having a community and being mentored to, having something to look up to, but a lot of people don't have that. They don't. So I don't condone it, but it's happening. And it's happening because of the frustration. It's happening because people want to be heard. And that is, I feel, that is their way of being heard, alongside those that are protesting as well, peacefully. And even those that are taking it and just wanting to take advantage, they're looking at it, oh, well, this is my opportunity to take advantage, unfortunately. It's not a pretty answer. It's not, that's just, I feel, one of the truths that are happening right now.
Well, the whole point, these conversations need to get uncomfortable and real, whether we agree on someone's point of view or not. The point is to understand that there are other points of views, and understand where other people are coming from and why they're doing certain things. I feel like that's the importance of having these conversations, so that we get to see a different point of view, because we get wrapped up in seeing our own point of views and creating stories within our own experiences. And that's why it's so important to diversify your group, because if I did not have you to have this conversation, or any other friend of any other culture and race, I would not understand their struggle or what they're going through. Or for example, I had my friend Kat from New York. We were having a conversation, we were having a meeting, and she brought up the fact that she's creating awareness on the fact that Asians are now going through bullying and racist experiences because of the COVID-19, because of the whole thing that COVID-19 came from Asia, China. And so they're being targeted for that, I guess, because people think that they're at fault. Makes, like, it baffles my mind, but they are experiencing that. And
I think about it, you have a president that is not calling it of COVID virus, calling it China virus. So that right there, it starts putting things in everyone's head.
Yeah, exactly. So having her as a friend who is from, an Asian culture, and sharing that piece of information with us, brought to my awareness the fact that I hadn't realized that was going on, and made me realize that, wow, now I see a different perspective and a different experience that someone else is going through that I didn't see. That I'm grateful that I have these diversified group of people where I can then know their experiences, understand, and be aware of other things that are going on, not just within my own little bubble, and that's what we need. That's what we need, because having these conversations with you, with Raquel, her experience, my experience, your experience, opens the world to a lot of things that people may not know. All these untold stories of experiences that we just go by. We go by the surface of getting to know someone, but not really getting to know them, what they've gone through as a person, why they've shaped their views of the world, and it has to do with your upbringing and what you've gone through as a person, and that leads to compassion, understanding that person, and knowing that, oh, she struggled too in some way or another, and maybe it's different, but there's struggle there. Maybe someone else struggled in a different way. Maybe it was through an eating disorder. Maybe it was through whatever the case may be. But the fact that there is struggle within us is what will unite us and be able to understand that we just want safety. We just want to be understood and heard. And so, the whole point of this conversation is to get real, to get honest, to say things that maybe I don't understand it or like it, but it needs to be said, because we need to understand where you're coming from, where I'm coming from, why we have these points of views and from our life. So, like, for example, my experience growing up with bullying, that didn't lead me to hate the Cuban culture. I love the Cuban culture. I married my husband who's half Cuban. I have lots of my good friends who are Cuban. That didn't lead to that, because I was able to open my heart and know that those people were just a small group of people, and it wasn't, I didn't generalize them to being all bullies or being mean to other cultures, and it's also allowing yourself to do that, to welcome and to be open to other people.
Yeah, I feel like that's the only way that you're able to grow. and just experience other points of view, and especially for our kids. I want my kids to experience even more, learn even more than I have. But I can't have one worldview. I can't have one view, pass it on to my kids, and then expect them to think any differently. Like, I think we owe it to ourselves to expand our point of view so that we're able to pass that on to our kids.
Exactly. It's not to say that we should erase our experiences and not share them. You know, that there's beauty in the struggle that we've all gone through, because it shapes us, and hopefully for the better, and hopefully for us to want to implement better for our kids, because that's ultimately, you know, everyone who's a parent and who you know, has children in their families, they understand the importance of leaving the world a better place for our kids. And I've been thinking a lot about Olivia and what she will have to face when she's older, when she's out there on her own, and how I would like her to act with others as well, because everything always starts at home. You know, what you teach your kids, how to be compassionate to other people. One of the things that I changed for me is that I had always said, you know, I grew up, my parents allowing me not to see color as an issue, but I realized that maybe that statement wasn't coming off as right, because you should be able to see color and you should be able to appreciate color, even though that wasn't where I was coming from. I was coming more of a place of, you know, seeing people as who they are inside, not for what they're carrying out here, you know. But one of the things that I learned from all of this right now is the fact that I need to stop saying that, because that may be understood by someone else differently than where I'm coming from, you know, and allowing the conversation to be that, yes, I see color and I embrace them and I love every color that there is out there. So that's the beauty of all of this thing too, that we get to learn things that we maybe didn't see it from that perspective, but now we see it from a different perspective, and you're like, oh, you know, now I see it differently. And all of these conversations that people are having have made me like, I've learned so much. I've learned so much more, you know. And also that's kind of the upside of all of this, that those who are having these conversations are allowing us to learn and experience a point of view from someone else.
I think to your point about when people say, you know, you don't see color, it's a nice idea, and it would be wonderful within the next, you know, for our kids' generation, for them to be able to say that statement, and it's actually true, because they are open to understanding one another and all the differences, and culturally. But, you know, I think for you to not see color, you have to understand everyone's perspective, and listen and learn. So, you know, sometimes I think that statement came from a good place, but it's proven that is not. We have to go beyond that. We have to dig deeper, and we have to understand one another, be open, and just learn from one another. That's it. And accept one another's differences. There's nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful. That's how God made us all. We're not mistakes, you know, and we have to celebrate that. We have to take the time to understand and learn one another too.
I agree. With something that you want to leave everyone with?
No, I just want to thank you all for just starting this conversation off. I hope that there's more to come, and this will be continued. I think the only way for us as mothers to grow and to teach our children is for us to be open and listening to all points of views, so that we can learn, and then, you know, just pass that on to our children. They're going to have their own experiences growing up, but the seeds that we're able to plant as their mothers, I think, can help guide them into a much better future, and a future that feels different and more inclusive for all.
Agreed. Thank you. We're so grateful that you are able to you were able to come and join our conversation. We are grateful that and honored that you were our first guest, because you are as our board member, and having you open the conversation to this, it's, you know, I'm grateful that I got to know you. We got to meet that first event. I always say that I'm such an emotional crybaby, but I'm trying not to cry. That's why I have all these weird pauses. But I'm so grateful the universe brought me to you. And I always told you that when you came up to me and you said that to me, and I remember saying that I didn't have any spots available at the moment. That same day I went home just thinking about the fact that I had said that, and how you felt so, like, your energy was just so special. And, you know, right away I was like, I need to find a way to keep connected to her. And that's, you know, it led to me asking you if you wanted to join our panel without even knowing you whatsoever that much. Like, really, essentially, we didn't really know each other, but I just felt something was there. Like, it was something that I just I couldn't, you know, let it pass. And now we're here. So I'm grateful for that first event, and grateful that you have been able to continue to be a part of this, and for allowing us to get a glimpse of your life and what you have been through all of this. And we appreciate your honesty, your openness, and for allowing our community who will be seeing this to get a glimpse of it as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Anna. You know I love you. I share the same sentiments, and I'm also a crybaby, so I'm not going to go there. But I adore you. I adore you too, Raquel. I'm so happy that you are a part of the Empire and going to move this community to amazing, beautiful heights, and so excited to watch and see what happens and be a part of it from afar. But thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for your friendship. It's meant a lot over the last 3 years, so thank you.
No, it's just a moment of feeling grateful, because this is what we ultimately wanted when we thought of this idea of you know, being an open conversation, because it's not about us trying to bring people that need to educate it as if we can't do the homework on our own. It's just having the platform as a channel for people to use their voice, and actually just keep on proving that at the end of the day we all can connect, and we have ways to connect. We're not so different, so like we need to stop seeing each other as if we are. So we thank you for using your voice today to elaborate on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to your edge, yes, there will be lots more coming. We hope that this becomes a regular thing where we are able to open the floor to open, honest conversations, and to tell the stories of our community and humans all over the world. So thank you for everyone who's going to be watching this, and hope that you can join the conversation by leaving comments or thoughts. And always remember that we come from a place of compassion and love. So any comments of hate are not welcome here. We want to have open and honest conversations, but please leave the hate out. So thank you for watching, and welcome to our series, our first episode. Have a great day, everyone.